Okay, sorry about that. If you were joining the Facebook feed, it did not want to work. So I don't know if it's just the Wi-Fi or what's going on. So I just plugged in my camera into a computer that has a wonderful Ethernet port, so we don't have to worry about that. So yeah, sorry about that, but let's get things situated and we'll continue where we left off. No, not really. We'll just start all over again because nobody was watching that anyway. So, hey guys, I am just getting the tripod set up here because I don't want to hold the camera the entire time. But what we're going to be looking at today, once this gets settled, there we go, is this little guy here. So this is a SCSI2SD adapter. And what this does is it emulates a SCSI hard drive. So you have your SCSI connector here, your internal 50-pin header, and then you have your little SD card. And in most cases, like you see here, there's no power cord. So you do not have to plug in a power cord to power this device in some cases. So that was really nice because, you know, Macs, especially like this, the LC2, it only has one of those power cords. So if you want to use a zip drive or something internally, you have to mess around a bit with a splitter or an external power supply. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shut this down so you can see how fast it is booting off of the SCSI2SD. And then I'll talk a bit about how I prepared that SD card and what I'm using and so on and so forth. So I'm actually just going to go shut down here. Now the PRAM battery in here I think is dead or dying, so I'm actually not going to shut off the entire machine because then I'll have to reset the colors and everything like that. But let's get a little closer here as I juggle my tripod and get a better look at the screen. And we're going to restart. And let me get my stopwatch out here so we can see how long this takes to get the machine started up. I know it's a little cheating because we're not, you know, going from a cold boot here, but let's click restart. Oh. Yeah, sorry if the audio is a little crummy. It's the built-in mic for the camera, so I can't do anything about that right now. Apologies. Yeah, so it's about 30 seconds, about 35 seconds to the desktop. There we go. That's not too bad. A spinning disk would have taken maybe a little bit quicker, depending on the disk. I am using an SD card that's an older one, so it's not like a class 10 or anything fast. It's not a SDHC or anything like that. But yeah, so that's pretty respectable. We are running system 7.1 here on an LC2. And overall, it's pretty responsive. There are some areas where it will be slow. And that's just, you know, might be up to the SD card, might be up to the adapter. I'm going to do some more tests. But what's nice is, since you have a lot of storage space, SD cards are very cheap and very plentiful. So you can just go out and get an SD card, like a 2 GB one or an 8 gig or a 16 gig, and make a bunch of partitions. Here I have 3. I'm using a 0.5 GB SD card here, which I just had lying around. It's one of the free ones that came with the digital camera when you buy one. Yeah, so you can also see that I'm using an external SCSI CD-ROM drive. So that is also, you know, does not interfere with the internal SCSI2SD adapter. Just like you were using a regular hard drive, you can use an external SCSI drive and things like that with it. I know some people were asking about that on one of the wiki posts that I read. But yeah, I confirm that that has not have an issue. You just have to make sure your SCSI IDs are all correct. So I think I set the SCSI ID to this to 0, and then that I think is set to 3 or 4 or something like that. You can set the SCSI SD adapter settings using a USB port, a micro USB port, on a Mac or a PC or a Linux machine, and they'll just set up some settings and things like that. So yeah, let's just open up some things and see how fast things respond. So this is a paint program, Easy Color Paint. I actually have the box here. This was one I couldn't find online, so I ended up buying it off eBay. So I'll be archiving that in the appropriate places soon. And yeah, let's play around here. What can we do? Can we make an apple here? This mouse could use some cleaning, but there we go. That's not too shabby, huh? But let's see. I think I have a file here from when I was a kid. Let me open that. This is sort of like Mac Paint on steroids. There's a lot of patterns and colors. Yeah, there we go. So, like every 8-year-old child, I was obsessed with The Lion King when it came out. So, not too bad. But, yeah, let's open up. I want to install something, and you'll see that while you're installing software, that's when it slows down a little bit. So I have this campus software set for the Macintosh, and it's a CD-ROM and everything, and this is just filled with a bunch of manuals, but essentially it was a bundle of software that was designed for college students and a lot of productivity things, but there's things like Spectre, or Spectre, however you say that, and After Dark and things like that. So let's open that up. I have a disk image of that saved on the SD card. A little slow to load here, but that's probably also the LC2 only has 8 megabytes of memory. Okay, I'm going to continue. Yeah, sure. Okay, we'll pick a different disk then. Oh, that's right. Yeah, so the first partition of the Macintosh hard drive there is only 20 megabytes or so. And that was just the way that the disk was formatted initially. I did not expand upon that because, well, I should have. I guess I was just lazy. But let's see if it actually gives us the option. Let's do After Dark to start. And let's see if it gives us the... No, it does not. So it doesn't ask us where we want to install it to. At least After Dark will fit on there. I never heard of this version, After Dark Starter Edition. Let's restart. I guess it's like a promotional thing. Let me see if there's a book about it or anything here. Just a limited 90-day warranty card. Whoops, that went on the floor. Artworks. At ease. Yeah, so I don't see any After Dark stuff in there, unfortunately. Alright, so that started up pretty quick. I do want to install System 7.5 on here, so I get some other options and things, but for now, 7.1 is better. I had 7.0 before. Here we go, After Dark. Yeah, let's start out with the flying toasters. I love that. Let's see. Alright, so you get 4 screensavers here. That's not bad. Let's make them faster. Can we do that? More fish! No? Oh. 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 It's going to do that every time I click. And I made it angry. I clicked too many times. think this LC2 at what is it? 20? No, I think it's a 16 megahertz processor. Let me look it up. I think the LC3 is a 25. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, 16 megahertz Motorola 68030. So yeah, we don't really have too much to play around with here. But yeah, so that's Fish, and if it would stop, there we go. And Starry Night, you know, just the cityscape being built slowly. So yeah, pretty cool screensavers. All right, so let's close that. Let's see if it will let us install install anything else. I wanted to see how the other game ran on here. But what's great about the SD card is I could put this in a Mac. It has to be I think it has to be Leopard or earlier, because Snow Leopard, I believe, took out the write support for HFS, you know, the old Macintosh standard file system format. So although I could plug the SD card into like a Sierra Mac or anything around that age, and it will show the file system on the SD card, I can't copy anything to it, which is frustrating because that's, you know, makes it easier to copy things back and forth to an old machine like this. You don't have to have it networked. You don't need a floppy disk drive or a zip drive or anything. But yeah, if you have a machine that has Leopard, like I have a Mac Mini with Leopard, it worked fine. And anything earlier than that should be able to write to the Mac OS file system. So I just used a standard USB to SD card adapter to do that. And it was great because I was able to copy all of these old files and programs on without an issue. And things like getting Stuff at Expander copied is always fun because you have to download a .sit file from the web because of the resource forks, and then you can't unstuff it unless you have Stuff at Expander. So it's like this catch-22 type thing. So it's always nice to be able to skip sort of those frustrating parts of playing with old computers and just get right down to the fun of it. So let's just see if this will fare any better than last time. So if I do custom, yeah, I'm not really interested in the planner or this. Maybe the artwork's later. Managing your money, retrieve it. Yeah, let's just do this. Let's see if this will. Well, I haven't complained yet. I mean, the installs, they're not blazing fast, but I mean, I would take this over an aging SCSI drive that's loud and noisy. I know the microphone in this camera is not the best, but there's not the hard drive making any noise or anything. It's actually very strange. I'm not used to that. There's only a fan noise coming from the Macintosh LC2. So, all right, so let's see. Here we are. Oh, serial number. Let's see if the reference guide has it in here. Okay. We don't have a serial number. Oh, yes, we do. On the back, right there. All right, so we'll just put in Steve. It's a good thing that paper was in there, otherwise we'd have to do some web searching. Oh boy, I remember this. Let's see if I remember the controls. I don't think it's... Oh, I'm getting hit already. Someone is very angry at me. Oh, no. The arrow keys on this keyboard are not in the traditional layout. There you are. Oh. Okay. I seem to be stuck going in one direction. Yeah, that's not ending well. Oh, maybe the key got stuck. Well, that's enough of that. I suck at that. Oh boy. Yeah, the only other thing I want to mention about the SCSI2SD card is how you have to get it initially working. So with this, you have to format the SD card in a certain way. By default, this device is not recognized as an Apple hard drive, and the problem with that is you cannot format the disk easily. So there are two options to get around that. One is to use the utility that you could download for the SCSI2SD adapter and fake the vendor and ID of the board to make it represent that it's a Seagate hard drive or an IBM hard drive or something that the Macintosh will understand, because Apple did use those devices back in the day. The other option is to download a patched version of the Apple hard drive setup utility, which lets you format hard drives. And that's a little more convoluted because you have to do that, you have to make a Disk Tools disk on another Mac, and you replace the hard drive utility with the patched version. But once you have that, you can boot from that floppy drive, floppy disk drive, floppy disk in the floppy disk drive. And then you can format the SD card on here. Now, since these drives, at least the SD card I'm using, is a little slower than maybe some of the modern cards, formatting did take maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but that wasn't too bad. And once that was formatted, I got 3 partitions. Well, I got 1 partition here, which was only 20 megs, which is like I guess an issue with the patcher. It only does that initially, and then I had to go in and select the free space and erase it. So my plan is to keep this at System 7.1 and then install System 7.53 on here. And I tried to do that, and it just didn't want to boot up correctly. So I'll be playing around with that probably later. But yeah, I mean, it works pretty well. It is a little expensive at $60 just for the device. You don't get any cables or an SD card or anything. But a lot of people will have that lying around. Like I said, it is powered by the SCSI bus, at least for this device, which was a nice surprise. And I mean, it's much better than going out and getting an old SCSI hard drive that will probably be on its last legs, because they don't really make them anymore and they're getting expensive. So this is a viable alternative. I wish I could get another one, but they're a little pricey right now, because that would make things a lot easier comparing one machine to another and things like that. But yeah, that's about it. The only other thing I want to do with this here is show you what I'm going to be using this machine for, and that's to control a Laserdisc player. And I have this HyperCard stack I found on an old floppy drive, which is pretty neat because it does let you control a Laserdisc player via a serial connection to players which did support remote control like that. So I'm just going to open up this HyperCard stack here. I'm going to archive this too because I don't know if this exists anywhere else. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But it's pretty neat here because you could make little scripts, and you could, I guess, control a lot of things. I haven't played around with this too much, but if you go to video controllers, you get a bunch of menus, and you can, if you have a CAV disk, you can do step-by-step and a lot of these cool things. And you could also, if I go to video buttons here, it's basically like a remote control, which is really cool. So, I mean, a lot of the Laserdisc players I have don't have a remote control. So this would be neat to play around with, and I have an Apple interactive Laserdisc thing. That would be fun to play around with this. So yeah, that's about it. I probably talked too long. But the SCSI2SD adapter works pretty well. I'm going to be doing some tests and things like that. But I was happy to receive it in the mail. I know they were out of stock for a while. And yeah, it works pretty well. So I would suggest if you, whoopsie, it's always the fun about doing a live video, you trip over the tripod. I would suggest if you have an old Mac and you are interested in trying to get a better solution for the hard drive, to actually get it, you know, I mean, I think it's pretty affordable. It's $60, but when you think about it, you probably spend that on eBay getting a few broken drives with shipping. So, and this is pretty indestructible. So, yeah, if you think about that, I think it's a good value. So sorry if we had audio issues today and things like that, but just wanted to show this off, and I appreciate you watching. If you like more of these videos, you can subscribe and just hit that little bell notification so you know when we go live and stuff like that. And yeah, that's about it. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care.